Despite serial killers making up less than 1% of homicides each year, the fear and fascination they instill keep us up at night. Psychologist and associate professor at Clark Atlanta University, Dr. Kanika Bell, told Oxygen most people are not interested in everyday scenarios that make up the bulk of murders that occur, like a road rage incident. We are fascinated by the one person who is committing ritualistic acts, who is planning, who is returning to his daily life as a husband, a parent, going to work in between kills. But what if the ritualistic killer is in your own family? Bell, whose expertise has been featured in Oxygen's series Killer Siblings, which returns for new episodes on Friday, looks into the cases dealing with relatives going down a darker path that often leads to destruction and death, and explains whether the serial killer gene is a real thing. In fictional shows like Riverdale and even the real murder case in Italy, the MAOA gene mutation, called the warrior gene, is sometimes used as a precursor or scapegoat for violent actions. The gene can cause deficiency, mostly seen in males, that might show risk for aggressive and antisocial behavior. However, we may be overly transfixed by the gene because of a desire to be able to explain what motivates a killer. We don't understand why someone ritualistically chooses innocent victims and butchers them, sexually assaults them, and maims them in ways that serial killers do. I think we are thirsty and looking for something to explain the phenomenon. In reality, Bell is skeptical the gene explains all the violent behaviors attributed to murderers. There may be some genetic predispositions to certain psychological problems or disorders, but in most cases, there are clear environmental factors that we should keep in mind, like family relationships or experiences growing up. When we do this type of work, we normally look for environmental triggers, Bell said. We're normally looking for psychosocial family dynamics that contribute to you or someone you know developing the capacity to commit acts like these. Still, the fear of passing down a genetic trait of violence is something some people grapple with. Imagine your last name being Gacy, Bundy, Dahmer, and people are making off-color jokes about you saying you're related to the Dahmer. And yes, you actually are. Sadly, some clients she worked with in the past with violent relatives swore off having children out of fear of passing along aggressive traits. It's difficult to try and reassure someone when someone has a violent parent or a violent sibling. There's a possibility you have really great kids, and this won't come down to a genetic pathway, Bell said. It's difficult for people to make that assumption. However, research does currently show passing down predispositions to violence is as common as passing down traits like eye color and hair color. I do think that sometimes people believe that it has a level of genetic power, and I just don't think we've had the studies to prove that. This is George Stillwater Kind, and I'm adding these 2 cents at the end. If you know someone that has traits, some of the early signs are violence as a child, killing animals, being alone, not wanting to play with other kids, violent outbursts, destructive things like setting fires or causing property damage. If you see these characteristics in your loved ones, your relatives, friends, or even your children, don't hesitate to take your kids to a doctor and just to do a routine evaluation. If the doctor recommends, he'll do a brain scan, and sometimes they can see things. But don't stay up at night and worry about it. Don't, think about all the bad things that can happen. Do something positive about it and find out what you can do to help yourself. I'm George Kind. Good night.